Let's try. Am I back? Hello. Invisible Wall School of Game Design. All right, am I back, people? Can you tell me in the chat if I'm returned to you? That's annoying. Okay. All right, well, OBS decided that I was not going to be able to stream anymore, which is unfortunate. Kind of sucks, but what can you do? Yeah, I guess we're back now, guys, but gosh, that was why does YouTube decide that if I have the slightest break in connection, then I can no longer be streaming. I can no longer maintain my stream. I have to end immediately. The game has to stop. All right. Well, where was I? I can't remember. We're gonna play this again so people can catch up and get back in.
For the most part, a mechanic that you would like to toss in the trash. And part of why that mechanic is so bad is it doesn't take into account the use of magic items in games. And when magic items are introduced, I think a common example being something like an immovable rod, where in spite of it being an uncommon item, has the potential to completely break games and allows for maybe creative solutions to a lot of problems, but also problems that are intended to be more intensive to solve than some magic
Players
items.
solving encounters in the wrong ways.
There wouldn't be. Maybe that could be part of it.
I mean, that would have to be it. If the contention is that the players are breaking the encounters in some way. Rolling Bones and Ryan and I just had a show on this about the success curve of different tabletop RPGs and the success curve of not just individual tabletop RPGs writ large, but between different modes of play. And my contention is past fourth or fifth level, especially in fifth edition, the expected success rate for fifth edition players is 100%. Or perhaps above 100%. You have additional backups in case something goes wrong to maintain a 100% success rate, which is, to my mind, pretty obvious. You're not supposed to have people dying every single session. So people should be solving encounters and people should be beating encounters. I do want to ask a clarifying question here, or I have a couple clarifying questions. One is, how many encounters do you find yourself running in a given night for fifth edition? Because you're running fifth edition, right?
Yeah, it's, I think, maybe a little more complicated than that. I have a game that I have been designing in playtesting called Godkin. A lot of what I run is something of a hybrid between
encounters. I do want to ask a clarifying question here, or I have a in the way that the knock spell is a key to a locked door, and a movable rod is a lock to spin-offs, really anything that has a. I mean,
There
I
we
know
go.
that Jeffrey
All right, so
Johnson.
this was something key. This guy goes off about his homebrew tangent, which didn't really matter because it changed absolutely nothing about the. Let's see here. Is he going to be able to handle similarly powerful items such as the ladder, hammer and chisel, saw, rope, 10-foot pole, etc.? Yeah, that's kind of the issue. Inexperienced DMs, and I do not mean this in terms of how many years you've been playing, because you could spend, as it turns out, decades on decades doing a given performing a skill like refereeing a game wrong. You could spend literally 40 years playing the game wrong, and so that's not going to give you experience when it comes to doing something correctly or comparing yourself to people who do things correctly. It's like playing a musical, like learning how to play the guitar with your toes. Maybe you could do something interesting playing the guitar with your toes. You might do something novel and and fascinating to the people around you, entertaining at the very least. Say, hey, that's kind of interesting. That guy's playing the guitar with his toes. But if you develop a school of people playing the guitar with their toes, and somebody comes along and starts playing the guitar with their hands and begins using the architecture, the engineering of the instrument as it was intended, and people see there's a greater breadth and depth and wider variance in the music that's able to be produced and the music that is produced and the ways in which the person can interact with this guitar. The people who play with their feet are not going to be able to communicate appropriately with this person who plays with their hands because they've been doing it wrong for 40 years. Right? They were trained incorrectly, and so they have an additional barrier to entry when it comes to working with this other person. They might show like, hey, this is how I hold the pick, or this is how you should hold the pick when you're first starting out, and these are the few chords that you should start off with. Well, let's start off with a smoke on the water, just to get some calluses on your fingers and get you used to the kinetics of playing the guitar properly with your hands. And then we can move on to certain ways in which you might improvise or personalize your experience. It looks black and white from the outside, and this is something that we'll return to later. It looks black and white from the outside. You're saying that there's only one way to play this guitar, and it's with your hands. Like, well, there's a lot of different ways to play the guitar with your hands. You don't understand this because you're doing it wrong, playing with your feet. And I tie that back into this guy's last point, is he tried to evade the question at first by saying, well, I run a 5e homebrew. I run my own system that's 5th edition hacked, so D20 fantasy. And regardless of any edition of D&D, whatever you're going with, they're all strategic games. Lancer is a strategic game. I feel, even though Lancer is heavily, heavily tactical, Lancer is still a very strategic game. In that, and during the Sleepy can confirm this, I believe, having played it, even though it's a highly tactical game, you're still given resources which are one, limited, and two, are far more effective in their limited states than the base actions that most people have access to, right? So this core power that you use, the Titans or the Lancer's core, that the frame's core that it uses, and maybe it blows a giant hole in the battlefield, or it hits everything within 50 spaces with rockets, everything within 50 spaces, those are limited resources because they're so much better than any of the standard actions that you're going to use. And that's a through line in most tabletop games. Most of them have that strategic element where you have a few encounter solvers in your back pocket for when you might screw up or when you might want to solve something quickly as opposed to solving something tactically. If you decide that I want to use my easy out to get through this problem, that I'm not going to have it later. And that requires me to make better use of my more tactically oriented resources, and there's a gradient here, if I want to pursue success. And players in games like D&D, all editions of them, at some point, it's different from edition to edition, but at some point are expected to have all the resources they need for a decent player, not even particularly smart player, but a decent player to achieve success 100% of the time within the sort of range band of expected encounters. The problem when it comes to running 5th edition is the Dungeon Master's Guide tells you you need to run 6 encounters in a day. It does not give you tools with which to do that, or good tools with which to do that. There's no such thing as dungeon turns in 5th edition, so there's no automated process for introducing new encounters into the game. If you're doing it by fiat, and the DM has to decide, and they don't really get what the random chance of an encounter is supposed to be, so they kind of fall back on just doing it by fiat, just deciding when encounters happen, is they become acutely aware that they're doing something to their players. They are the ones acting on their players, as opposed to the game naturally producing challenge for them. And you become a social antagonist as opposed to a neutral social arbiter of interactions between the players on one side and a paper AI on the other. When the referee begins shifting into that role of antagonist, they're no longer able to be fair. So there's this whole tangent about, well, I only run the short of this is this guy only runs, and his games only run, more important, this network of paid DMs only run about 1 to 3 combat encounters per night, which is insane. You will never challenge your players. I don't care what kind of encounter you throw at them. I don't care if it's CR25 that you're throwing at a level 7 party. You're not challenging your players with one encounter. And the reason is the players have, in one encounter, they have all of their access to all of their strategic assets in a given combat encounter. In one singular combat encounter, they have all of their strategic assets. And the strategic assets are designed as such, as they are in every edition, to, if you get lucky once, solve a major portion, or maybe just do it automatically, right? But let's, for argument's sake, if you get lucky once, the encounter is solved. So what happens if you have 7 people at your table, and all of them have a resource that allows them to get lucky once and solve the encounter? Well, it means that your one singular bad guy needs to get lucky 7 times, and your players only need to get lucky once. So there's a basic misunderstanding already in this conversation. We're establishing that, and again, I like Grey Mage. I think it was brave of him to talk to me. I wouldn't want to fight me neither. I think I was very impressed by the fact that he showed up. And was willing to be pretty firm on some of his stances. It may be too firm to the degree that some of the questions didn't get answered. But I don't think that. Yeah, there you go. I think we've already established here that they don't actually know what's going on with these games, what the core loop is supposed to be, and they don't know what to fall back on. They just have these aphorisms, because aphorisms are what you use when you have no internal, when you don't have like an internal architecture for thoughts and creativity and enacting that creativity in a given medium like tabletop RPGs, bringing that creativity to life. There's no architecture there, so you have the aphorism that gives you a rough guideline of how to interpret your feelings, like a spell. I don't know.
Over this, and this was applying to a first edition game, was games in which in which you were permitted to strategize and have resources intended to solve problems, right? A fireball is a key to a room of 20 goblins, in the way that the knot spell is a key to a locked door, and a movable rod is a lock to maybe a door that has something particularly nasty on the other side of it. These are resources that you keep in your back pocket that are intended to be expended over the course of an adventuring day. Problem is, if you run into only 1 to 3 combat encounters, that does absolutely nothing for a strategic game. It's of no benefit to a strategic game, because the players can effectively go Nova every single combat encounter. And so you're going to run into, you're not going to accumulate the bumps and scrapes that are intended across the course of the evening, which will eventually produce an emergency. So something like a proper 5th edition game is going to have, as recommended in the Dungeon Master's Guide, somewhere between 6 combat encounters per night, not including traps, not including social encounters, not including anything else, environmental hazards that might demand expenditure of spell slots or magic items or potions. 6 combat encounters. Well, how do you do that? Well, the first way in which you would do that is by not paying attention to bouncing encounters. And I don't just mean this in the sense that most people do when they say just stack up as many CR, throw 5 beholders at your party. No, you can throw 4 skeletons into a room, and the players fight the skeletons. Maybe the skeletons win initiative. They get a couple of lucky hits on your adventures. And I still use low-level monsters like zombie skeletons and tomb dwarves, right, in my very high-level 5th edition game. And the reason being is because every once in a while they get a hit. They get a little hit, and then they're wiped off the board in the span of a couple of maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Because I'm not trying to wring every last hit point of damage that I can out of these skeletons. I'm just interested in rolling, basically flipping a coin. Did I manage to ding somebody over there, or did I not? Okay, fine. And moving on to the next combat encounter. That's a structure that all of these games since 1st edition, whether you're talking about
Bonbon says, let's see here. Seemed out of depth with what was being discussed. I mean, that's just natural. During the sleep, he says, homogeneity sucks. I don't even like fielding the same stock enemies in back-to-back games. This guy's magic item list is just advocating for what he specifically is used to. Yeah. If a handy haversack is game-breaking to you, because the players have... out of all modes of play, players are expected to default succeed at. Surely, logistics is at the very top of that list. Okay, the logistics of encumbrance and weight is it. You bring a donkey, you bring a cart. I mean, 5th edition, it's even easier because you can bring the donkey, but if the donkey dies, then you might have a druid in the party and they can turn into a donkey, or you have a ranger in the party, and if they get a sufficiently large critter, maybe they can bring something along with them. And it's really not... It's not that bad. It's not that bad. So, and if already the default mode of success for something like this, which is, congratulations, you could take on some extra carry weight, it basically exists to remove the logistical component of encumbrance from certain parties, or from the party that has that item, who has the handy haversack. That's the game working as intended, because you're supposed to be focusing on things other than encumbrance at the point at which you get that handy haversack. If he's saying you have to wait until level 5 to get access to this, then he's saying that the game until level 5 is critically balanced on whether or not you have access to enough carry weight for your party. And that's not what 5th edition is about. That's not what any edition of D&D is about. That's barely what the tutorial levels are about. Rodrigo Baywell says, but man, math is hard. Here's the thing, it's not about the math, it's about what you're spending session time on. And things like the bag of holding, or the handy haversack, or the portable hole are designed to, much as taking a donkey with you, carts should be unavailable until level 5. Yeah, Tensor's floating disk. I can't believe I forgot that one. Even in 5th edition, doesn't cause concentration. Are intended to get rid of that problem for you, because you're not really supposed to be focusing on that problem until an emergency happens, right? Even as someone from the Triad culture of play, this guy's a fool. Understand? I totally get where you're coming from there. Even you're occasionally supposed to come across emergencies where you land in a desert, and maybe now the amount of rations that you have access to is more important because you're not going to be able to replenish them easily. Ditto for things like encumbrance. There's supposed to be these default things like, hey, by the way, you're supposed to get some of your ducks in a row, fill up some equipment slots so that we can leave this thing to the side. At the moment that you say, all right, we have a total of 100,000 coins worth of carry weight, because AD&D First Edition does weight and gold pieces. If we say, all right, we have 100,000 ready to go, Yeah, we have 100,000 coins worth of carry weight ready to go. You don't have to count every individual thing until somebody suspects that we're actually getting closer to that 100,000 carry weight, or somebody loses a piece of equipment which would cut that carry weight to the point where it would be close or otherwise. So if a troll comes out of the woods and grabs your donkey, that's the point at which you start addressing carry weight. Yeah, it's cool that you guys were carrying this ballista with you, but if you want to shoot that at the troll, now you have to figure out some other solution for bringing the ballista along with you because it was getting towed by the donkey, and the donkey is currently 20 feet in the air, being waved around by a troll. Okay? So if you have then Bonbon de Jour said, I don't have the 5e DMG on this computer. Can I ask if someone can confirm this information? 7 to 9 magic items recommended per campaign in it. These recommendations were updated in Xanathar's Guide to Everything when Jeremy Crawford and the rest of the gang started to realize, shoot, maybe we should include some real game design inside of this, inside of 5th edition. And so Xanathar's Guide to Everything represented their first attempt to do this. They were unsuccessful, but they did include a table of, hey, you're supposed to have this many magic items at every level. So somebody can find that and link it. I will pin it here and open it. The whole issue with bro opponents always comes back to outright denial of implied setting and progression in the game rules and mechanics. That is, yeah, get that out of here. It's supposed to be cool. So that's the issue we're running into right now. Let's progress a little further. Go on.
That and then titles. Basically, my question is, which of these rewards are actually producing? If I'm wrong, based on the specifics of your game, exception being 10 to 15 minutes. Because I'm not trying to wring every last hit point of damage that I can out of these skeletons. I'm just interested in rolling, basically flipping a coin. Did I manage to ding somebody over there, or did I not? Okay, fine. And moving on to the next combat encounter. That's a structure that all of these games since first edition, whether you're talking about first edition or OD&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, second edition, third edition, fourth edition, especially fifth edition, absolutely. You're looking at a strategic structure of the adventuring day, which demands a high density and variance of encounters, or else something's going wrong. Because these are not purely tactical games. You're not making tactical decisions at a baseline, exception being fourth edition primarily. Party can defeat in a given night, and that slowly whittles resources away for your party, but it produces emergencies along the way that will occasionally kill a character, or occasionally they lose you a magic item and produce new adventures as a result. It's intended to produce a loop. I guess my question for you following up on that is, what about the other rewards? Coinage, experience I don't.
Oh, here's an important note. Hufos, I'm going to get to that in a moment. Here's a really important note. It's something that, an objection, I don't want to say an objection. It's a dumb phrasing that's out there in the tabletop industry where people describe strategic games as wars of attrition, and that's incorrect insofar as their description. That's a bad description for how the game plays out, because a war of attrition implies that eventually you reach a critical. You have two sides, and they are trying to whittle each other down to zero over the course of a battle, or over the course of a war, or an encounter, or something like that. And that's not really D&D. I know instinctually we probably disagree with that, but that's really not these strategic games. Because you can run into really horrific bad outcomes for your player characters well before the majority of the resources are expended. They are vulnerable before the majority of their resources are expended. And more importantly, individual characters are vulnerable before individual resources are expended. The whole reason we have something called a death spiral is because a death spiral is the outcome of a tactical experience, primarily, I think. There's some strategic parallels, but I don't have any ankle biters in chat at the moment, so I'm sure I could just get to my actual point. Where people have, okay, so the average RPG character has a bunch of resources that they use to get themselves out of emergencies or prevent emergencies across the course of the day. And they don't have to be out of all of those, or even out of some of those. They might just have not have the opportunity to use those. Around there? They might just not have the opportunity to use those resources in the course of the day. And if they happen to roll a 1, or if they happen to run into some other problem, that emergency sticks. All right? This person fails their saving throw, or they fail their counterspell, or they fail something, and now I have a disease, or curse, or some other persistent effect that's going to give me a negative experience, or a penalty for the rest of the adventuring day, and maybe extending beyond that. That can happen at any point during the day. Is more likely to happen at some other point. You want to have your ankle bitten? I'm not into that. Sorry. You know what? I will definitely live. What's going on? You would think if money equals time as the objective, it would be more loose with the magical loot. Folks are more likely to be interested if they are going to be making gains every session. God, I wish. So, anyways, we come back to this question here. Hey, this guy has a bunch of different kinds of loot. Which of these actually have a mechanical impact on the game?
Don't count because you experience is intended for levels. You can't quote spend it until, and you could correct me if I'm wrong based on the specifics of your game, but you can't spend experience. You just accumulate levels, and so the level is the reward, which you're going to get once every couple of months, maybe. Coinage. I mean, it's down to your system, but by and large, the only utility of coinage is buying magic items or solving occasional emergencies, like somebody getting resurrected, which is valuable, and it's kind of cool, but not as cool as the other rewards. Magic items, those are obvious. The hero point or civilization point system that you described as kind of meta currency was interesting to me. I always like stealing from the World of Darkness games, depending on the campaign I'm running. If I want to steal something like Glamour or Quintessence, that's a lot of fun. Meta currency can be pretty useful, so I'm interested in that. And then titles. Basically, my question is, which of these rewards are actually producing different mechanical outcomes for your players, and which ones don't actually count as rewards?
So a question that I actually had as far as a follow-up for you is that most of the encounters.
So just no answer. Just no answer. We never get back to this. We never get back to this question of, hey, you say there's a bunch of different kinds of rewards in your game, but experience doesn't really count because the reward is getting a level, and experience is just tallying up, giving a rough indicator of when you're probably going to get that level next. So it's not going to count because you didn't get your level. All right, and gold kind of similarly doesn't really matter until you have a purchase available to you that's gonna. The real reward is friendship, unfortunately. Let's see here. Loot is only valuable to someone if it's hard to get. This holds regardless of what type of loot. I completely disagree. I think if you steal an airship, I think flying is valuable. I think having I don't know if hoisting's being lib or being dry there. So I'm not picking on hoisting here, to be clear. But I'm just using one of my favorite stock examples. All right, having a base is valuable because it adds more strategic dimensions to your campaign. You have a safe place to store your stuff. You have a place where you could stable exotic mounts, companions, hirelings, henchmen, in a way where you don't necessarily have to have them along. And additional, what else am I thinking of here? And you have the additional benefit. You have the additional benefit of, let's see here, flight is also a nice benefit, all right? And then something that can carry guns is a benefit, and mounts are beneficial. And so an airship is kind of like all of those wrapped up into one. It's something that you can ride. You and your friends can ride it all at the same time. That's pretty cool. It flies, and flying is pretty neat because it opens up new methods of, or basically opens up new paths over the world and opens up new encounter types to you. The aerial encounters are expected different from the overland encounters. And it's a mobile base. So that's also pretty cool, right? And so regardless of whether or not that airship is easy to get or not, it's not going to have any impact on whether or not the players value it. Maybe they'll value it a little less if they know that they can get another one, right? If there's only one airship in the world, they might be a little bit more freaked out about keeping the airship and avoiding something. I believe in you. All right. So that airship is going to be valuable pretty much no matter what. It's because it's changing the mechanical experience for the players. If you get to get 2 airships, well, now you're getting into more like fleet dynamics. That might continue improving. This is an iterative process where the more dynamic your game gets, the more fun it can be. And so while these individual, and maybe that's more important, maybe the individual components of your party's magic item portfolio or reward portfolio really don't matter at all as to whether or not they were hard to get or not. Maybe what people really remember is the process or journey to stack these different items up into not quite unique, but idiosyncratic combinations that that party gets to enjoy. We got to combine these magic items because we included these player characters tonight and these henchmen, and we primarily used these items, and that resulted in blank, right? Because what we're really trading in is, and this is a point that we'll get to later, we're not trading in whether or not we're not trading in the economics of a magic item, we're trading in experiences. And the experience of not having magic items is common. But every individual magic item has some kind of luxury branding to it because they're somewhat unique in the course of the campaign. So every one that you stack up is going to be a much more luxurious and valuable experience because you're deviating away from the common experience of the banal experience of not having magic items. And then you're going to take it one step further is the individual magic items that you guys get to benefit from over the course of the campaign are also going to be, to some degree, unique. You're pointing out that asymmetrical mechanical rewards matter. I agree, a game where all rewards came in one way would be boring. Magic items means options, and options means power and fun. What about cursed items in this discussion? I would love to get to that later. I'm going to pin that comment. So a game where all the magic items are swords or bows with a plus whatever then would be painful and boring. I've been there. Completely agree. Because I think you can evaluate why a game where you only had +1, +2, +3 swords, bows, and staves would be boring along the same gaming principle that I described. Because I'm describing a game in which you get a bunch of magic items and you stack on each individual magic item gives you a new dynamic experience. And then every magic item you get from there iterates on the dynamism of the previous magic items you received. Maybe not every single one, who cares? And so this improves the game over time. And so if you're evaluating you then have a metric for evaluating the quality of the rewards. Let's say that you do give people rewards frequently in a campaign, but the rewards themselves are not very dynamic. Well, now we have a new explanation for why some rewards are better than others. So I'm going to pin first items.
That you would run in any given session are dungeon crawls, right? Mostly spent within a confined space where you're able to control the environment and the monsters and the things that come up. Is that correct of the games that you run?
I would say no. I think I'm split about 50-50 right now.
We're gonna skip ahead because
to make it essentially a war of attrition, but that there's things that you can do that actually reward players from a little bit more of a narrative perspective. If they find out information regarding character backstory, if they were to find out things that lend themselves towards narrative beats that can still
If only you knew how bad things really were. Okay, let's go back here. Wait, I can't zoom in on properly.
be something that is satisfying outside of exclusively having the magic items, the gold, titles, and then whatever other homebrew mechanics we end up building.
So this was the point that we didn't get to discuss this is the point that we didn't get to discuss in the debates, which was the subject of narrative rewards. And narrative rewards is a fascinating subject to me because all of the people claiming to do it in tabletop RPGs are not doing it. What they mean is a quest has ended when they say a narrative reward. But it has nothing to do with the game. And it has nothing to do with how video games, which have already kind of, as far as I'm concerned, also cornered the narrative experience, handle narrative rewards. Something like a, let's see here, earbuds are out of batteries, so we gotta yield the headphones right now. It's important to be able to cook shish kebab on a flame tongue. I completely agree with that. Latent abilities and attunement on magic items can keep the overall number of items low and lets the players feel warm fuzziness of possessing something unique. We will get to that. We'll get to that. And I think we'll be able to tie it into Bonbon's. Yeah, we'll be able to tie that into Bonbon's question, and I think we'll be able to tie that into the later point of narrative items. Or narratively focused magic items, which is one of the easiest ways to make use of to give somebody a narrative reward is to give them is to declare that the magic item they discovered that you just rolled up is in fact sentient. But we'll get to that. So narrative rewards in something like an RPG are going to be rewards that don't directly enhance your tactical capacity, though they can. They're just not. It's not the point of them necessarily. The point is to acquire different kinds of social relationships and swing campaign events in ways that did not require you to individually track and meter out and force the issue, right? Brute force every single decision tree that would be involved in making that change. Making that change on the map. That's a really generic way of describing, okay, whether or not a companion likes you, whether or not an NPC likes you, whether or not a country likes you, or a faction, or some other benefit, or whether or not a nation gets overrun by the Orc King, or the Ghoul King, or something, the Demon King, or something else like that, all right? There's certain narrative rewards that you could have access to. What do I want to take do I want to take an example from anime? Do I want to cross that moral event horizon? Well, we'll leave that to the side for a moment. Let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to open up Baldur's Gate. Because keep in mind, I had not really played Baldur's Gate at all. Just barely got through, rushing through Act 1 and back when I had that debate on Rolling Bones with Alchemic Raker. That was a lot of fun. Pacific Wind Day. Give me Baldur's Gate. Do it. Yes! Yes! Alright, tell me if you can actually see this stuff. Question says, I think magic items that are odd and offer room for mastery by the player once they wrap their mind around its mechanics can be very rewarding, such as the portal gun from Portal. Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. Let's go to... Oh, I can't go to camp. That sucks. Alright, I'm just gonna have to look at my characters then. Okay, so I have 3 people in my party here. I have Halcyon, who's a druid from the Emerald Grove, who's currently wearing some very familiar armor that's supposed to belong to somebody else in the party. They're no longer around. We have Karlak here, and then we have Minthara, who was trying to kill Halcyon from the Emerald Grove earlier on in the campaign. Alright? So, what are these individual... What is a narrative reward as far as Baldur's Gate 3 is concerned? I will tell you. Narrative reward to Baldur's Gate 3 is accessing these different companion NPCs. This is one example. Accessing these different companion NPCs, which are to some degree unique in comparison to the stock 5th edition characters, which you can purchase as hirelings. I've been fascinated mechanic, awesome. Thank you, Larian Studios, for developing a real game. The tabletop industry wouldn't know what to do without you. It's very interesting because it used to be in the game that if you got Minthara, which you had to do, which you could only do by destroying a Druid Grove, right? That's a quest. You can only get her in your party by way of destroying a Druid's Grove. That meant that Karlak would hate you and Halcyon would hate you. Both of these characters would eventually come over to kill you, or would attempt to fight you if you met them. So my reward, narratively, in my first playthrough for killing Minthara was having access to Karlak and Halcyon. And in a different playthrough, killing Karlak and Halcyon, or at very least killing the faction that they were in favor of, meant that I got Minthara, did not get these two, right? That's what a narrative reward is. That's one of the things that could be a narrative reward. Narrative rewards can also be information, though that's really a bad metric, because all bad artists write mysteries. This is no, I'm not going to elaborate on that right now. That needs to be a video script at some point. Hello? Is it just darkness in here? Oh, pfft. Oh, hello! Oh, that's definitely a problem. Alrighty. So, a narrative reward, in some contexts, is going to be something like getting a new companion and making friends with them, accessing the cool stuff that they have access to. Yeah, accessing their cool powers and abilities and maybe social connections. Maybe you don't have maybe you don't have an airship, but your buddy has an airship. And if you make friends with your buddy, then that guy will happily take you on his airship to go somewhere that you wouldn't otherwise be able to go. Or it might be prohibitively expensive to rent an airship. So this is another cool thing that you have access to. Absolute's brand. I haven't seen any other character with this feature. It's unique to Minthara as far as I can tell. And as far as the player characters go. So having Minthara means I get this really cool feature that I wouldn't have otherwise. Ditto for Karlak. She has some interesting features. Halcyon has some unique druid forms that I want to make use of. So that's also pretty sweet. Got a cave bear. Neat.
Alright, Karlak, it's go time.
Oh yeah, he's toast now. I just did it again. He'll do a reckless attack, that should be fine. Should just need to attack this guy twice. It should be. Ah, yeah. See, there we go. Ooh. Crackling resonance. When the wearer deals damage with a ranged spell attack, inflict 2 reverberation against the target. See, that's interesting. I defeated 1 mimic, and I have a scroll and a magic item and a bunch of cool loot in here, and I bet there's even more to find.
Red.
This is awesome. I love this. I live for this shit. Okay, so that's one example of an open heresy. Yeah, I'm not gonna read that right now. Just one example of a narrative benefit. Finding cool stuff. Another example is... Oh, I'm encumbered right now. Another example, a really good example, I think, is... Oh, I can't go to camp right now, so I can't... Oh, no, this is a good example. I was going to use a different glaive, a different magic item I was wielding as my example, but turns out I already have one. This Moonlight Glaive was a narrative reward for rescuing an NPC. I had to pursue a particularly difficult task. I had to engage in a bunch of, in addition to regular combat encounters, I had to engage in some puzzling. And I also had to choose to give up one of my companions, Shadowheart, who was going to kill... Now, Halsin is wearing her armor, which is probably completely appropriate. Oh, nice. That's a pretty cool... I didn't even see that. That's a really cool fucking magic item there. Huh. I might have to make use of that. But I had to give up one of my companions so that I could save this other companion, this other future companion, this other NPC who's going to help me in the battle above. And we're about to experience it in a few minutes. And additionally, I got this cool magic item. This is something that we never got to discuss, and I'm angry about it because I think it was gestured at, but like never really addressed, never really discussed, which sucks because, listen, dude, magic items are narrative rewards in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases. Too many cases. Too many to count at this point. Let's see here. It's embarrassing. I think it sucks that people don't know the obvious implications. There we go. So we're gonna send this to camp. If the baby boy does not stop crying. All right, let's go back here. Game is on screen. Bonbon says that he has to bounce for a hot second. Totally fine. Let's see here. What else do we have in chat? It seems like we've mostly recovered from our earlier technical mishap. Dare I explain? Yeah, okay, here's an example. The Hellfire hand crossbow. I got this by convincing a devil to kill himself, to go back to, so that he would be sent back to the Hells to get out of a contract that he had with another devil. And as a result, he dropped this cool hand crossbow here that I now have access to, and I think it's pretty cool. Alright, so that's another example of a narrative reward. And that's the thing is, in real games, narrative games, real narrative games like Sorcery or 80 Days or Heaven's Vault, all of those are games made by John Ingold and Inkle, or the studio Inkle, which I, of course, am a huge fan of. What else? I failed a religion check. Somebody else look at this then.
Ketheric's been studying something called the Apostle. But of which god?
Interesting. Think of, oh, there's a pile of books here, and I get a scroll full of, Scroll of Fear. Fantastic. Another clear example of just the superiority of this game. Just not being stingy with loot. I didn't say, oh god, this sucks. I hope I get no more loot for the rest of this game, because I found a 3rd level scroll. I said, that's awesome. I hope I find another one. I don't really use the fear spell as much, but I might run into a situation where I just need to make use of it, where it's optimal. I don't know, because I don't know what the rest of the game is going to play out as. And the fact that it's willing to just give me a scroll of fear is encouraging, because it means that a spell that I might like more, something like haste, Or if we're going up in levels, maybe something like Summon Elemental. That's equally exciting.
Open up.
Just the presence of the game not being stingy with rewards means I might have a better experience later on. I'm more likely to find rewards that I do like. That's pretty exciting. I'm happy about that. Astarion is currently missing from my... Ooh, look! A cloak! Absorb elements. Absorb elemental damage once per short rest. Take half damage from the next elemental attack targeting you, and deal an additional 1d6 of that element type on your next attack. Cool. So the once per short rest thing is kind of sucky.
Sounds like she loved him very much.
Oh, from Kethric's wife. That's interesting. Yeah, there we go. We'll give him the cloak. Because Husson doesn't have a cloak right now. So Hoysten asked, so a narrative reward by your definition is the world responding to it in a... two players, I'm going to put that there, in a reasonable way. So basically a result of a sandbox, or the DM thinking through the results of players' actions. Maybe... I don't know if I have an overall or generic explanation. Yeah, I don't think I have an overall or generic explanation for the... There we go. I'm not comfortable making a generic definition for something like narrative rewards. I think narrative rewards are shortcuts. Yeah, there we go. Narrative rewards are to some degree shortcuts between other elements of the... Oh shit. This way. What the heck? There's another door right next to this one. Should be.
Shouldn't have wished to live in more interesting.
So narrative rewards are shortcuts.
Very well.
The campaign, or benefits of the campaign, in a way that does not require the use of individual, it does not require the use of these individual messed up... Oh, what do you guys think is in here? Well, individually tracking all these other game components. Is this Balthazar's power room? I want to say it is.
Here we go.
Balthazar personal notes too. Yeah, that's probably it. There's a...
Something over there.
Oh, what the hell? I appear to have blundered into a trap. That's okay. I don't think I really have to worry about these guys that much. I don't think they're going to do anything to me. Knowing them, they would call it... Yeah. PC game nerds love fancy terms like ludonarrative dissonance. Knowing them, they would call it ludonarrative dissonance or something equally silly. Maybe they would. I don't know, man. When I think of the... Yeah, when I think of game benefits,
I wonder if
like...
this is worth the cost.
You just beat this thing twice, right? Yeah, we're just gonna beat this thing to death. I don't want to worry about this in any other capacity. Just perish, please. Thank you. You as well, please. Thank you.
Our enemies still draw breath.
Poisons and venoms. Oh, I wonder. I bet that each one of these things summons a different type of critter. Balthazar's apprentice. Empty. Ugh. What happened there?
Secured.
Oh, hello. Memory crystal there.
What is it hiding?
Oh, you have no bonus to this. You get out of there.
Still breathing, despite everything.
So yeah, so that's something that we didn't get to discuss across the course of the debate. Is like, hey, magic items are narrative rewards in a lot of cases. If you get a magic item by virtue of convincing some, by virtue of completing some quest, then that's up to you. Let's see here. Let's try lock. I just lockpick this again. Pretty sure I can. Yeah. Alright, so it's going to continue making me not do this. That's alright. We're going to keep going for it. Hey, something that's an example of a narrative reward might be something like a key. If you happen to convince a guard, how did I only get a 6? I must have rolled a 2 or something. That blows. Fuck it, I'll use inspiration. I think that gives me... Yeah, that's what I figured. I don't know. Maybe it's superstition. Maybe it's an actual game mechanic. But I feel like inspiration... Whenever I use inspiration, it gives me extra juice. Alright, here's an example of a narrative reward. A key. If you do something for a guy, you can acquire maybe a key or a disguise, which is a kind of key. It's like a social key. It allows you to get to a place that you otherwise would not have access to. That's a narrative reward, but it has a direct impact on the game. You can now adventure in this location. You can now secure resources from a new location that presumably has resources you didn't have access to in the other place. So the fact that people like narrative rewards has nothing to do with whether or not gives you absolutely no excuse as to whether or not you should be getting something from a campaign. But if you don't stop, I'm gonna pick you up. I'm gonna get you. Alright, so I'm going to set this back to our delightful.
Right on my feet.
Here we go. He's not gonna stop them. So we're gonna set up. We're gonna go back. The thing over here. He's just gonna keep doing that.
Building into our systems.
Right.
The
There's 6
idea,
rewards I call narrative.
right. So anytime that you're trying to think of reward types for players, you need to be thinking about, well, what motivates my player? Why are they showing up to the game in the first place? Are they showing up because they want to be an epic hero? And magic items might be a part of that, but I think that it's more than just, the sword that a person wields. Aragorn, I think, was definitely a lot more than just the sword that he wielded. Legolas, we don't really care what weapons he had at all. Sure, we care about what Bilbo had, but a lot of the magic weapons in a world are just tools to aid the player characters in what they already are supposed to be. And leaning into the idea that magic items are something that is necessary, especially if it's a magic item that has any sort of semblance of permanence, like a +1, +2, +3 magic item, let alone anything like, a handy haversack, which essentially gives, I won't say infinite inventory, but it's a lot of inventory. And one of the biggest criticisms that I have of 5e and a lot of the newer systems is that players have already conquered so much by the time that they've hit level 1. They've basically conquered gravity based on how many characters can fly. They've managed to conquer death because of how difficult it is for characters to fail death saving throws. They've managed to conquer all of these different things. So as a DM, you essentially have to, without being overly heavy-handed with the types of monsters that you throw, you need to introduce conflict in a way that is satisfying. And one of the best ways that you can do that is the War of Attrition of making magic items scarce, the way that they were actually intended in earlier editions.
Okay, so there's a lot of claims in there that were pretty bad, if I'm going to be honest with you. And these are some of the rebuttals that were never addressed, but listen. All right, let's start off with the idea that player characters have conquered so much when they're already at first level. Again, encumbrance is not the primary challenge of the game. The players are expected to succeed at challenges involving encumbrance in every edition of D&D. That's why Tensor's Floating Disc is a first level spell, because encumbrance is not the game. Encumbrance is in a bucket of potential emergencies the players might have to deal with. And once you get, a single emergency is usually not too difficult to deal with. But once you get more than one emergency in the same game, in the same session, the same adventure thread, then it introduces a lot more. That's the point at which emergencies sort of conspire and combine together to act as modifiers on the rest of the campaign. Significant enough in their severity or scope or scale, you could say, that it enforces changes in player behavior. Okay, we're a little bit screwed on encumbrance. Well, that's kind of annoying, but we can figure something out. We'll just have to spend extra time getting through this local area. Well, unfortunately, the local area is also particularly barren, and you don't have a lot of rations on you. So now these two different emergencies create a modifier on the campaign, which is you must choose, or on the adventure thread, for the duration that you're here, you either need to solve one of these emergencies, which could persuade you or could urge you, incentivize you into some rash decision making, or you need to exit this area of the campaign as quickly as possible, ditching some of your hard earned loot or some of your hard earned natural resources and rations along the way. Do you want to risk starving out in the desert to keep uh, your brand new set of plate armor that happens to be really heavy and is not really good in the environmental conditions of the desert? Maybe you would risk that. Maybe you would rather have your character die than give up that awesome suit of plate mail. That's a situation, praying all the while that you're going to run into the encounter tables are going to give you something of a benefit, whether it's an oasis or a human merchant or maybe an enemy army is the best thing that you could hope for because they presumably have some supplies and you can sneak in or have somebody sneak in the night, get those supplies for you, and now you didn't miss out on your plate armor. Okay, so the idea that the players have conquered so much at first level is wrong. That's not something that a good referee would ever say. Ever. I'm going to make that qualitative stat. There are no caveats here. A good referee would never say something like that. Because a good referee is not. The good referee's challenge does not rely on the players, on first level characters, having to worry a ton about encumbrance or flight. It's so dumb. If one of your first level characters can fly over a gorge or over a chasm, that means nothing for the rest of the party, necessarily. It could mean something if they combine themselves either with one of their own resources or a resource that the party members have. Let's say that one person has a folding boat, right? And another person has the ability to fly. Well, maybe the person who has the ability to fly can take the folding boat over a chasm and place it inside of over a chasm, place it in the water so they can sneak across the water without getting spotted because they're flying. They could use that to take the boat across, get to some place, and come back and give whatever their resource or objective was back to the party. Fantastic. That's an example of teamwork, right? And that's an example, even if it wasn't teamwork, that's the example of a player making use of their resources, some of which were divined or acquired through character creation, and some of which were acquired through play, or combined to produce a solution to whatever problem they had at the time. Because that's what a real referee thinks of. That's what a good referee thinks of. They think in terms of challenges and outcomes, right? How many different ways can this problem be solved? Are those different ways in which the problem can be solved going to produce, are they going to modify how future encounters are solved? That's another important question. Whether or not the players succeed, because I can't challenge my players without the use of, without relying on encumbrance and weight and rations, which I don't believe. I don't believe that this guy runs me or any of his associated dungeon masters. I don't believe that they run a campaign focused on that. I think that they run combat encounters, and I think that they run some puzzles or exploration segments, sections, as the people were irritated by. And I think that the combats are tactically boring, uninteresting, and they just don't know how to make tactically interesting combat encounters or to run a high enough volume of encounters. This is the problem. They don't even know how to run a high enough volume of game content that they can trip into tactically interesting scenarios or strategically interesting scenarios. Either of them. Yeah, you could cry all you want, but you were crying at the door constantly, 10 minutes, and it was very distracting. So now you get to sit here with us.
Because the world itself is supposed to be a world that has scarcity of magic. Lately, as far as the
This was pretty thoroughly debunked, so I'm just going to skip it. Just going to remind everybody that D&D was never intended to be a low magic game or low magic setting. There are magic items everywhere. Magic items everywhere that the players are adventuring. Whether or not a peasant has access to a +1 pitchfork is completely irrelevant to whether or not the game should regularly introduce magic items. At all. And so using that as the defense for like what makes an interesting game, oh, actually, a game with less magic items is more interesting. But it's so dumb. I'm sorry. Just obviously untrue. The more dynamic game, we could just say on the face of things that more dynamic games are more interesting. Or accidents are more interesting. What do people love most about tabletop RPGs? Well, the game can spill out of control in ways that you didn't expect, and you have to kind of put the rails out. You have to lay the rails on the track as you're. Wait, no, you have to lay rails in front of you as you're hurtling down the track. Is that the analogy? I hate people who mix up analogies. I hate analogies, period. So I've committed some great sin here. Let me look at the chat again. The like button nerds are my 331st favorite live stream. Let's see here. Wrong, D&D is not just about what characters are. I'd rather pat the button. All right. They have resources and not just intrinsic abilities. Would you consider finding a magic item for properly puzzling together where it would be from the environmental storytelling of the dungeon to be a narrative reward? Yes. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, keep crying all you want, man. Yeah, there we go. Sit here. Yes, I would. In fact, I have an example of that in Baldur's Gate 3. Time to return to my favorite brain rot. I think one of my characters has it
I am
equipped.
listening.
Right? I have something called the Blood of Lathander. Here, it's a legendary mace. It's awesome. And we found it by going to a Temple of Lathander, and we found all of these. We kept finding these secret hidden rooms and these references to the Blood of Lathander, and references to artifacts and special weapons that might have been used in times past. So we kept exploring. Eventually came across this room where the past owners, or the past head monks of this monastery, were venerated, some of the more important ones. And each of them were depicted with a weapon. And we found actually, we had actually found enchanted weapons that were labeled ceremonial battle axe, ceremonial, not maul, warhammer, ceremonial spear. And there were pedestals nearby. If you dropped the correct weapon, it didn't have to be the ceremonial variety, it could be any weapon, but provided it matched. You drop any of these weapons on the pedestals associated with these particular monks, and it would light up. And so that was like a clue that, oh, maybe you've made some progress in an experience or an adventure thread or in a mystery or in a puzzle. You made some progress in a puzzle that you weren't even aware existed. Include into it, so why not keep going? Reward your curiosity. Give in to your curiosity. They kept doing it. We kept doing it. And then we were given a little artifact. Yeah, we were given a little artifact that let us make use of a different puzzle of a set of secret rooms, which were rewarded for exploring thoroughly. And long story short, we were able to combine the resource from this one puzzle and the location that we were given access to by this other puzzle. But the one thing and the other thing, congratulations, woo! We now have the Blood of Lathander, which is a very useful item. Okay, it gives me Sunbeam once per long rest. It gives me a constant light source in a 6-meter radius. And that could just passively blind an undead. Awesome. Awesome. Really handy. If I had gotten it to work with the Shadow Curse outside, which was like this environmental effect, it would have been even better, but that was too buggy to like reliably use. Yeah, you crying. That's fine. Sit here. So yeah, I love environmental rewards like that, and technically speaking, they're narrative as well. Do not jump off. Anyone that says that D&D was meant to be low magic needs to read the Sage entry. Every single educated person in D&D has some amount of access to magic. Your college professor would have spells. Yes, that's correct. Quantum Wings says also +1 to +2 in OD&D system is way more powerful than in 5e. That's correct. Not just because the bonus to hit. I mean, a bonus to hit is probably equally as powerful or equally as beneficial in 5th edition versus the older editions. That's a lot more flattened. The exception maybe being 3rd and 4th edition in particular. Third edition definitely, 4th edition maybe. But the bonus to damage is so much more beneficial in a game like OD&D, AD&D, than something like 5th edition, because 5th edition has a lot more hit point. Not on the part of the players, mind you, but on the part of the monsters. A CR3 creature can have something like 100 hit points. So a +1 bonus to damage doesn't really do anything for you. Even though the +1 bonus to hit might make it more likely that you're going to hit them, you still have just so many more hit points to chew through. Yeah, you cry all you want. That's okay. I'm mainly a Pathfinder's 1st edition player, so yep, no, you get it. Yeah, cry all you want. That's fine. Yeah, you can do your little airplane. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, and here's a perfect example again of what I was talking about earlier. If Baldur's Gate had made me wait until Act 2 to get a magic item, that'd be just so stupid. These guys are completely tricked out. Strongest magic item I ever ran across in a 1E game was a +1 dagger, which added your 2-hit bonus to damage rolls. That's interesting that that was the strongest item that you found. Going on to 2 questions that we got earlier, one of which was from Bonbonj. At last, we've come back to it. What about cursed items in this discussion? And one other question, which I think was from Red One. Latent abilities and attunement on magic items can keep the overall number of items low, and still lets the players feel warm fuzziness of possessing something unique. There were systems in AD&D First Edition, in particular for magic swords, which I think says a lot about how much attention it paid to giving classes unique things to enjoy, or semi-unique things to enjoy. You could roll to determine whether or not a magic sword was unique, and there was a pretty good chance. Remember, you're getting magic items all the time. All the modules have like 30 magic items apiece. Okay, Pathfinder First Edition is what I run. Tons of cool magic items. Completely agree. I think it's very cool that Critical Role, remember, their campaign actually started in Pathfinder First Edition. And I think that really inspired a lot of the cool items that Matt included in his campaign, which I think were pretty significant to the enjoyment of that show. I do believe that voice actors would be fun to listen to in any context of playing any kind of tabletop game, or just putting them around a table would be fun. But I think that those players had a lot more to work with, based on the fact that they were playing a game in which there were armies moving around a map, There were factions in conflict with one another. There were special locations to go to. People were acquiring magic items and cool loot all the time. They were completing quests for powerful NPCs, which give them additional boons and quest opportunities. Here's a prime example being the Hunters Guild in that whatever city it was that began with a V. I cannot recall. Fighting vampires and dragons and ancient liches and finding unique spells and artifacts. They had a whole arc. It's focused around recovering artifact tier magic items. That was awesome. That was good. That's just a little tangent on Critical Role, I guess. But so AD&D has these curses, and it has these unique artifact powers that you're going to get, or unique sword powers that you're going to get based off of whether or not your sword has any ego to it. And while I do think that's cool, I think it's awesome when magic items can improve with you. Or maybe if you could take traits with you, that's another thing. You growl all you want, buddy. Okay. What? What if you sit on the table? Will you be happy then? You will sit on the desk. You will sit on the desk. You will sit. Yes, you will. Yeah, they're not. This is the thing: is people who are interested in narrative games, author branching content, all move to video games. There's nobody who's interested in narrative games as far as D&D is concerned because they don't have any real definitions for what narrative entails. They don't have any benefits that they can point to. This is what a player gets for narrative rewards. This is the class of items or the class of companions or campaign events that they get rewarded for as a result of narrative engagement. Scaling as the scaler, I assume that's other. Either he means scholar magic items. That's one possibility. That would be really interesting. Scholars in the magic items that specifically have to be attuned to an NPC class. That's pretty cool. Or scaling magic items, in which the resources that this item is supposed to accumulate over time
and well
gives you some additional benefits. Ooh,
don't mind if I do.
Yeah, good stuff. Oh, hey, it's another cloak. When you poison a foe, heal yourself for 1d4 hit points. Do I have anybody who deals poison damage?
Awaiting
Don't
orders.
think I do. But you know what? Karlak has access to a lot. Certainly. Maybe I should give her access to more. Not that I think on. I think that'd be a really good idea, actually. Problem is, of course, that we're fighting a bunch of undead, so that's not going to be terribly effective. But a man can dream. It's fine.
Phew.
We have good stuff over here. Good loot. Yeah, I'm gonna have to run. Oh, that's going to be frustrating. Hey, he's got some good alchemical items. Cool. Althazar's personal note. Hey, here's an example. I found a I found a note from just by exploring the area, and now I maybe find out some additional information about the bad guy I'm getting ready to fight. Of course, this one I personally already killed, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something for me to discover about perhaps some other bad guy or somebody else I might be fighting. I've heard about some nerd named Gortash around here. I don't know who that guy is. I will assure you I don't know who that guy is yet, but I might find out by virtue of this game. Paying attention to my surroundings.
Disc is formed from slate. and engraved. The symbols are striking to look at, but you aren't sure what they mean.
Oh, hey, here's
The
another
disc on
example.
Crash Yellick was
Let's see
distinctly
here.
similar to this
Actually,
one.
someone's made fun of
If
it.
you can match the symbols, you might find a legible pattern.
This is interesting. So, uh, this is from an alien race that he's not native to this particular plane of existence, and not this planet. But I happen to have one of those people inside of my party. So if I had them with me now, there's certain narrative constraints or mechanical constraints, specifically when it comes to something like Baldur's Gate, as far as party size. You're capped at 4 because of course you are. We have to do that. But by virtue of maintaining a good relationship with the Githyanki in my party, I have access to, even if I don't figure out what it says right here. I'm unlikely to do so, to be clear. Yeah. Who could have predicted that? I can later bring
matter
this
how
to
hard, you should
the...
take the disc to Lae'zel.
Should take the disc to
She might know
Lae'zel. She
more
might know
about
more
it.
about it. Ooh, fascinating. I can
Githruel, maybe?
take that.
Looking
The
ahead.
person I know who knows that language because I made friends with them.
Never wanted the easy.
And there are other ways of getting around that problem, of course, but it's nice that I have that solution on hand. Pick that up, the bottle rack. Shocking lack of goodies. Shocking lack of loot here. I say ungratefully, having just been given a rather nice cloak, I think.
Let's have a look.
I needn't be so cynical. Big old bucket of bones. See, another empty thing.
I spy with my little eye.
Nothing of note, really.
Excellent. Scaling might be a better term. Each had a special ability that gained charges from getting crits, and the ability damage scaled with PC level. Yep, and that's something that's really easy to do with Ego in AD&D First Edition, and I mean trivially easy. If you can think of a single meta currency that you like from, for instance, World of Darkness, right? Maybe you're like me and you really like the lore of Vampire the Masquerade and Changeling the Dreaming. Changeling the Dreaming? Yeah, not Changeling the Lost, Changeling the Dream. Well, Glamour makes an excellent resource, a very specific resource for a lot of those magic swords. And what might you get Glamour from? Well, you could theoretically get it from combat, but that's also something I could say would be given to you by virtue of taking on certain downtime actions. Perhaps a narrative reward. The log on one of Balthazar's necromancers, Cressa Bone Daughter, dated to 10 days ago. After the state of the Fallen One was in, I never expected Cressa would be able to save it. I was hoping the usurped thing would die. That's what it would have wanted. Not as if Cressa studying it is going to prove much. It was damaged in the attack, far beyond what the mere tadpole could do, but she seems fond of the foul creature. Let her play with it. Another entry seems to be written into this log. That's bad writing. Another entry seems to be written into this log, dated a 10-day later. You just say, another entry is written into this log. If you want some, dated a 10-day later, if you want some ambiguity, say, whatever. I should not have, in hindsight, let Cressa keep her pet. Ever since it was shipped on to one of the Nautiloids to be deployed, she has been inconsolable. It won't survive out there. It needs me. It isn't like the others. The feral thing will make a fine warrior for the Absolute, and now my best assistant is distracted thinking about it. She will come to heels again soon enough. Interesting. So maybe there's some kind of monster.
Oh,
That's not terribly interesting or useful information. I know that there's going to be a monster at the top of this tower. I'm expecting that to begin with. But I don't know. Something else there. I need. Let's see. Marcus, I assume no explanation is needed for just how rare these appendages are, and I trust you shall make good use of them. You have a golden opportunity to please the general. Do not squander it. Access to the unwilling donor has proven difficult since the harvesting, but if I am afforded the opportunity, I shall pass along your gratitude. I can only speculate as to what that might be. A rare appendage. Can anybody think of what kind of appendage might be rare? The more I think on it, the more confused I am. But let's return to engaging in a fair bit of work. It was an unfair bit of work. Do I have access to lesser restoration? Somebody here. It's the lesser restoration. Go ahead and lesser restoration me. Thank you, kind. Okay, time to prepare some spells. We have Conjure Elemental, Conjure Being. I feel like so the actually. Yeah, we got most of the stuff that it's concentration, gonna ignore it. Concentration. I mean, spike growth is always useful, but I guess screw it. Why not?
You need my expertise.
I always.
Is that
Sorry.
blood? No. Never mind.
Then do I need anything additional? My particular class list here, I don't. Gross. Is there something for helping people who have been charmed in some capacity? I cannot. If there is, I cannot. Maybe it's lesser restoration. Instead of my. Yeah, there we go. Nice, a drunk. Imagine picking things up with your nose. Okay, yeah, that does seem pretty rare to me, actually. That reminds me, alright, I already have resistance to necrotic damage. Are there any elixirs I should be making? Anything at all. Likely not. Yep, that's fine.
Don't burn yourself.
Does Carlac have any scrolls here? I feel like I should give her more. You might expect that a barbarian shouldn't have scrolls, but quite frankly, I'm okay with her having access. Oh, no, I should do. Yeah, there we go.
I've got a long road ahead.
Still have that. Oh, hello. There we go. There we go. There's that lady I saved earlier.
What have you done? Huh. What have you done to me?
Oh, here's something interesting. I found a note from this guy's wife. I found a note from this guy's dead wife. And now I can say something about his dead wife. That's a pretty low DC. I might just make this. I opened my big fat mouth. But I could roll again. Why not? There's just cat hair in my mouth. Oh, God. That was a lot of cat hair. What the fuck? What is going on right now?
There is no redemption, can't you see? It is too late. If Melodia could see all I've done, she'd know. She'd know her husband died long ago with Isabel? Unlike Isabel, he could not be brought back. This is no spectacle. This is payment. My life was dismantled piece by piece. First, my wife was taken. My wife. And then my beautiful daughter. My life was forfeit. Gone. Finished. And when I tried to buy it back, it cost me everything. Everything. We are copper pieces in their belts. Tokens to be traded for scraps. You have beaten me, true soul. But the gods beat me first.
Interesting. Let's see here. I can help you, Ketherick, if you let me. It isn't too late, Ketherick. Your story doesn't end. I like that second one. Oh, well, that's a problem.
Aelin.
Rise, you dog. Retribution has come, and her sword is my sword.
Alright. Wait, Ketherick is... Hey, by the way...
Ketherick Thorm would sooner die than lay down his rank cause. Isn't that right, General?
I was a fool to hesitate. Power like mine cannot be hidden, cannot be cowed. But power like mine has a price. A price I am destined to pay. You have one last chance to bow. Once it's gone, I'll have no choice but to destroy you both. Do you hear? Bow!
Oh, hello. Another narrative reward. Here's an artifact that protects you from certain problems that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get past.
All this time, you worm. You will bow before me. And if you will not bow, you will break.
He will crumble at the power of your touch. Give him all you have. The gods fight at our side!
Sweet. Oh, this will be fun. Well, I'm pretty low in the initiative there. I don't know if I like that. Alright, Grella, go get him. Is this lady humanoid? She's humanoid. Is he possessed? Not quite. No, funny thing, he's more possessing the... More like he's sort of possessing the deity that he currently, quote, worships or makes use of. There we go, bleeding. Oh, that's gonna be a problem. Oh, you missed. Idiot. Get bent! There's gonna be a dog over there. I'm gonna respond by conjuring an elemental. That should be him. Yeah. True one. I'm gonna turn into a bear. I'm gonna kind of fan out and cover post hides here. Another one of those things. Oh, that's frustrating. Oh!
Focus your attack, soldiers!
Oh, that thing is it does not care.
Ready for battle.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. It'll be very simple, everybody. Ready? It's going to be very easy.
Where do I go from here?
Let's go ahead and boost this all the way up to 5th level. And we're just gonna... Yeah, alright, that'll work nicely. I think it'll work.
Cutting to the chase.
Another one bites the dust. Let's make that... Why don't we make that 2? Good. Nicely. And then I'm gonna run away. I don't want anybody to get rid of my concentrational maze.
I will not fail.
Gushing air, that's like a range attack. Oh, neat. I have to destroy those things too. That's always going to be a problem. Right here.
Blood comes easy these days.
Oh shit, they're beating her ass. Yeah, let's do one more turn of this. Miss, you gotta be fucking joking. There you go. That's a problem. They're just absolutely beating the shit out of her. That's a problem.
Focus your attack, soldiers.
Miss, what the fuck are you talking about? We're back in business.
Come on. Can't stay idle.
Where's that dog? Oh, he's chilling over there. Alright.
Enough. My lord
Oh, is that it?
beckons me.
That's a problem.
You must return to your prison, and my daughter must be reclaimed.
Your daughter? Isabel.
Uh-oh. Ooh.
You will fall as sure as she. This has only begun.
I think it teleports her. Yeah.
That tentacle was colossal. How can such a thing be possible?
That's an issue. But it's one that we can solve.
No choice but to keep going.
Your command. I seek an advantage.
Which one? Oh. Mm-hmm. Where's blinded right now? Is he? Yeah. Hmm.
Time to push my luck again.
Hmm? Mm-hmm.
Well, so much for peace.
I'll see you later, man. As well, I gotta get this out of here, man. I still feel it. It's so gross.
That thing came from below. We need to find out where it took Catherine.
Somebody pause here. It's fucking killing me. The sphere is following me and killing me as a result. Just get rid of it. Alright. I'm going to...
Debate. There's a lot of different ways to have fun.
definitely being an asshole.
Ultimately, your objective is for players to have fun, and my objective is for players to have fun. And we found that there are different ways. It was a good discussion in a way that I might not have been expecting, which is, I think, kudos to you.
We do have a question here from chat. Crafty Matt would like to know if you think that Ash was more reasonable and gave you a better conversation than perhaps Gelatinous Rube would have.
They're the same person.
They are?
Well, okay, I guess as far as personas go. Okay, yes. If that's fair. As far as, I understand branding. Definitely Ash gave me a much better conversation than I think Rube has. I think that Rube in the past has given me the introduction of, you're a piece of shit, bottom of the barrel, why do you have opinions at all, you piece of crap? Versus,
that was your interpretation of the tweets.
Dude, I have screenshots of those tweets.
I'm looking at the tweet right.
Keeping it civil, and
there's people who are making appropriate tactical decisions. These 15 seconds of fun. How do we make this game?
Well, James, go ahead and speak your piece here.
Yeah, I think this discussion overall was a pretty clear demonstration of the difficulty with talking about tabletop RPGs to begin with. People who are involved in the design space, myself, tend to discuss things like, all right, how do we replicate Bungie's 15 seconds of fun? How do we make this game a satisfying mechanical and narrative experience with all these different moving parts conspiring together to produce emergencies, tension, and resolution in favor of the players, by and large, especially in favor of better players, people who are making appropriate tactical decisions, intelligent social decisions, choosing better goals, and being more proactive overall. And the difficulty with having these discussions is anytime we give an inch for people who are more narratively focused, or for people who are fundamentally trying to run a not game, people who are trying to run, or maybe a different game, and I'm giving the inch here, so somebody's going to take a mile, we are immediately
and I definitely did that, so apologies.
Barrage with, well, you could do it any way that you want. There's no bad way to run a game. If possible, you could just do anything that you like. There's no baseline game loop of mechanical and narrative and social interactions being described by the book that we have to adhere to. We could just do whatever we want. And that leads to games in which people are running 1 to 3 combat encounters in a given night. They're ending shortly after, they're ending content early based off of whether or not the players have skipped any content. And they're not able to, and it's producing referees who are not able to cope with the most, what I think should really be the bar for whether or not you can DM, which is, does an uncommon magic item break your campaign? That's ridiculous. You're running ultimately a flattened experience in comparison to people who can handle giving their players a multitude of magic items early on. If Baldur's Gate 3 can cope by providing a smorgasbord of not just magic items, not just scrolls and potions, but also a bunch of new invented unique rewards that can be provided to the players, whether they're additional spells per day or additional resources. It's all these kinds of cool trick arrows that can be found all throughout Baldur's Gate 3. That is the standard for a game. And so I would like people to be able to run a game like Baldur's Gate 3, to get that kind of high variance, high intensity, high challenge, and ultimately just a very broad and deep experience simultaneously. And I'm just assaulted by people saying, well, my players didn't kill me. Zombie Gygax didn't break down my door with a shotgun, so I guess my game is just as good as yours. It's so frustrating to not be able to address any of these in even remotely objective terms, because once I bite the bullet of saying, yeah, somebody could run a game that was satisfying without rolling on the tables, immediately that's where the curiosity stops. That means, well, I ran a session without rolling on any tables, and that must mean that Rube or Ash is endorsing my style of play. And I'm sorry, you got to go a little bit deeper than that. We're talking about not in these black and white terms, but in these very specific gaming principles, which are supposed to produce specific game outcomes that other people are not achieving. So when we're discussing, so I can run combats in which my players get to have rewards on a regular basis, and other people are not. People running conventional games are not. I can run 6 encounters in a given night, even in a tactical or slow to resolve game like 5th edition, and other people can't. I can run domain play, and other people can't. At some point, there needs to be some degree of curiosity to bridge this gap here, or it is going to look like I'm being an asshole because I'm doing something better, qualitatively better. I'm running something that, I'm sorry, it's just, I'm running a game in which you can have more experiences and the players are not punished for the individual preferences that they have in that game. As long as they're coming to game, there's something in it for them, and that's not the case for the rest of the hobby. And so it's going to look like I'm being an asshole because I'm doing something better.
Mm-hmm.
But I want everybody else to do something better with me. That's why I have a YouTube channel.
Yep. Yeah, and it looks like Grey Mage has jumped off for the evening, but yeah, it's one of those things where when you admit to the edge case, everyone immediately thinks that's the median. So yeah, there's a lot of there does need to be, if not a reminder that it's an edge case, just discouraging people from taking that path. I agree with you there.
There's a bunch of, do you want to run through a couple of questions or comments that you've started so far? I don't know what your time constraints are. I'm fine to continue.
Yeah, so I mean, we're pretty much at the end here. We did have one super chat here from Brian James saying click the like button. So, if you guys enjoyed what you see here, definitely click the like button. But yeah, I mean, good discussion all around.
I just want DM Blackwall to know I could also tell him to kill himself on air if he's upset with my direct messages. I can also do that. DM Black, I don't even know what that interaction was. But I'm sure I had a perfectly good reason.
All right, well, guys, that's going to do it for Rolling Bones this evening. Next week, I will not be here. I will be on a business trip. I will actually be hanging out with Crafty Matt in SoCal. So no Rolling Bones next week. We'll be back the week after that, looking at some exciting things for February. James, once again, thank you for coming on. We will definitely bring you back on to talk more in the design realm in the coming months. So definitely looking
I
forward
hope
to
we get to talk with Gray Mage again. That was a fun conversation. I think there's a lot of things that he could be curious about that would allow him to run better games, and more importantly, especially I've done paid DMing. I feel pretty bad when I run a crappy session paid DMing, and I think, hey man, the tables are in that game for a reason.
Yep.
Maybe there's some good training in there that were incorporated by the rules, or if you treat the rules on their faces being valuable. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I'm so glad you rolled.
Gray Mage is back. Let him say bye. Let him say bye.
He's back. Gray Mage, your camera's not connected. He's here in chat. Let's see.
You should still let him pull him from backstage. Actually, maybe not.
Oh, here we go.
Hello?
All right.
Hell yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, I had a phone call come in, and it just shut everything down because that call came in from WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is, I'm going to stand on that and say it's kind of a dumb app. Let me see if I can't get the camera.
The rest of your phone.
Sorry, do you have anything brief to say in closing before we close this out tonight?
Yeah, just thanks for having me. It's one of those things where I kind of hope that we'll be able to have a discourse in the future, preferably one where myself and anybody in the community that I try to build is just, not automatically called names for maybe having a superior type of game in the beginning. I appreciate that what you said there gave, I think, a lot of context as far as giving an inch, taking a mile. I definitely did that with the 1 inch that you gave me. And I know that there are people who would abuse that far more than what I did for the sake of just the context of this one debate. Overall, I think that puts some things into context, but I do think that there's a bit of a walking in the no man's land in order to pick up people who maybe haven't committed to a side and people who need a little bit more guidance. I do a lot of guidance. I've done a bunch of DMs workshops, and I think that I run pretty decent games in spite of maybe not preparing those games with a table. It's not intended to be a personal attack, but some people without context might view it that way. You guys have been good to me, and I appreciate that because I maybe wasn't expecting as kind of a welcome with coming up onto the podcast, considering the encounters that I've had with you guys on Twitter. And I do know that Twitter does bring out some of the worst in people, and getting a chance to chat with you guys outside of that medium has been good. So thanks for having me on.
All right.
Cool. Well, everyone, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I'm so glad you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and I will see you guys next time.
DM me for DMing advice. Do it. Please, Gray Mage.
Well. I've just had a horrible experience. A horrible experience. Really horrible experience. Which I attempted to clear cat hair off my tongue. With only partial success. And the problem with partial success in this regard, it's really no success at all. It's just suffering. Anyways, what did you guys think about the last 10 minutes or so of my little speech there? Just keep in mind, we started getting off into subjects like, hey, what does it mean to run correctly? What does it mean to run a good game or not a good game? And back to Baldur's Gay. Bald's Gay. Balding gentleman Selford. I've been quote balding. I've been fighting a battle with balding as I'm 26 now. That's 5 years. I have long hair. It's going great, but man, Winter sucks for shedding. Air shedding? Oh god. Oh man, it's brutal out here. You don't understand. Anyways, so we spent the past like 10 minutes talking about all these little subjects like, hey, what does it really mean? Run a game correctly. What does running a game correctly entail? Are you really do you have the one true way of running these games correctly? And if so, how? Like, why would you even say that? What's your justification for this perspective? All completely fair questions. Until you get to the point where somebody has lost the lethargic condition. Interesting. Until you get to the point where, for some reason, we're not allowed to talk about ways that are better or worse at playing, and for some reason there is a condition. There is some kind of people think there's a debate to be had on whether or not a 2-hour game in which bypassing a single encounter forces you to cut the game short. People are insistent that no, surely we could say that one of these is better than the other. Or no, sorry, that we couldn't possibly say that one of these is better than the other. That's definitely a problem. Don't like it, I'm afraid. There's a lady down there.
Time to press ahead.
That's a problem. That's definitely a problem. And you saw that we got to it, really into it. Here we are. UFO says, he doesn't strike me as someone that thinks about these things much, but that was my main impression. He sends up saying bits of wishy-washy nothing statements when the real topics come up. Let's see here. I've heard it before, but you're not wrong. His rationale of, I decided this is best because it feels good to me, is the definition of an anecdote. And the moment we start talking about play experiences as to whether or not is somebody who's paying $20 a session and only gets to play for 2 hours, is that person going to stay in the hobby for longer? Why should I believe, really, why should I believe that something, this is the most ridiculous point, I think that if you don't give players magic items, they actually stay around longer, and that's technically true, but that's an example of something called the sunk cost fallacy, where you encourage somebody. It's like your gaming style, man, where you encourage somebody to stick around in the pursuit of a better game that they're hoping is just around the corner. And you lead them on, basically, into thinking that they might have a positive experience at some point by never attempting to deliver on it. That doesn't mean that you're running a good game. I think that definitively means that you're running a bad game. Maybe you run a good one by accident. We'll discuss that in a moment. But yeah, so I think it's pretty clear that I have these definitions of good gaming that are reliable, that allow people to pursue more enjoyable games over the course of their career, as it were, in a way that these other people can't, clearly. So if I give somebody gaming advice and I say, okay, I know that you don't know how to do this, I know that you don't get how many encounters there are supposed to be in a given day. Alright, I totally understand. I get that you don't understand how often the players are supposed to get treasure. You don't understand what kinds of monsters the players are supposed to fight and what circumstances they're supposed to fight them in. Totally fair, totally understandable. I get it, man. The game was already designed with these numbers of encounters, magic items, and different, alternative play scenarios, will be generic there, in mind. So you can just kind of trust the game. If you can trust the game to provide you with that information to begin with, now at the very least, every referee can start out with the same baseline, same understanding that, okay, this is what the game is intending for itself. This is the stated design goals of the game. And this is what it feels like. This is the play experience of playing the game as written and as intended. Okay? If I know that, if I rely on these tables to play a 6-encounter game, I'm going to have a better understanding as time goes on of the game that 5th edition's rules are attempting to describe. There's probably an underlying game experience there that doesn't conform one-to-one with the rules, but you'll be able to figure that out and adjust for taste by playing rules as written to begin with. And more importantly, you can, one, learn it correctly, right? Not by accident. You can just run it correctly by following the rules procedures that have been provided for you. Two, you can learn that without messing up the campaign to begin with. Assuming it's a real game, for 5th edition, God, there's no bigger asterisk for any game edition than 5th edition. Even the game I hate most, which is 3rd edition. Well, second edition. Even then, the referee has something to go off of where they're not reliant on generating a game from scratch, because that design is a skill and none of you are designers. It's hard to look at things objectively like this, since one has to let go of the modern conventions. Yeah, you have to let go of things like, don't read the rule books, you don't need to do that. Well, that was invented by people who didn't read the rule books, but managed by accident, largely, to run campaigns, which didn't make use of them, but still included some kind of game loops that people could enjoy nonetheless. Which is a pretty clear example of survival bias, because then you run into all these people who have succession campaigns that never go anywhere, meat grinder, mudcore campaigns that never.
The general will call that a tactical retreat, I'm sure. But you have him on the run. That thing he summoned was illicit. Follow it below and find him, before he has a chance to subdue the Night Song again. I don't doubt it. But I'd come with you, if you'll have me. If our luck holds, they won't need to. If it doesn't, well, they are Harpers. Being outnumbered is part of the job. But the sooner we reach Ketherick and rob his army of their reason to fight, the better. You have numbers enough already, I think. You'll want a small force, if you are good.
That's funny. Hollow Tower. Yeah, fuck. Oh, are you saving on me? All right. Okay. Should we short rest again? Maybe we should. Should. Yes, I will leap after
The
him.
hole yawns back at you, impossibly wide. A single tentacle burrowed through stone.
This is an Illithid colony.
Uh-oh.
This must be where they harvest the tadpoles. We're close to the source of the infections.
Oh yeah.
All of this sitting beneath moonrise. For how long? And how deep does it go?
This is a... This is a problem. Second.
Tread carefully. We are very close to the source of the Absolute now. That telepathic storm has become a tempest.
There was a little guys over. So at the end of the game, you know, at the end of the debate, we're discussing things like, oh, well, I have a cool thing that I'm doing and you don't have a cool thing that you're doing. And I think You know, while it seems facetious at first, I get it. To say, like, you're playing the wrong way. I'm sorry. I'm just...
Fresh recruits for Catherine's army.
Oh, we're gonna go down this way, actually.
Seems simple enough.
Yeah, there we go.
These symbols are nonsense to me. So why can I read them?
What do you think, Halston? Check it out.
Perhaps someone knows what this means, but not me.
These symbols are nonsense to me. So why can I read them?
Funny. I can read this Mind Flayer script. Thanks, I guess, Tadpole?
She's
No
the
time to rest.
one person who
Don't
makes
waste a step.
who successfully does. Jesus Christ, you let me get. Okay. Anyways,
Here goes nothing.
oh, something's going on there, but what? Rescue Zario's asset from his towers. Ooh. Okay.
This place has been used to make slaves of those who should be masters.
The device releases
Mind
a
Flayers
stream
and
of
civilians,
fragmented memories
side
and
by
emotions.
side.
All that remains of the pod inhabitants.
This must be
famous
where they
sound.
infect and transform those they kidnap.
Amusement. This
Curiosity.
pod pulsates with the angry memories of Ravengard's search of the horrors of Moonrise to be a fleeting dream. She laments her failure to locate him. Desperation, pain, terror. Cultists raided his village. He was the sole survivor. Your lungs burn with the dry heat of the fires raging about you. But the pain is not enough to diminish your swing. One goblin after another falls to your blade. A man's voice cries out through the thick smoke. Ravengard, you call, but the clang of swords and spell shouts of attacking drow are your only reply. Your tadpole forms a telepathic connection with the device, and a chorus of static energy fills your mind.
Oh, here's another thing.
Every
Little.
mind flayer in the room calls out
Oh,
hungrily
interesting.
from its pod, seeking release and sustenance. But there are others in the pods, those not yet infected, not yet elithid, terrified, desperate to escape. The device is open to your tadpole's command, to your authority.
All right. Time to do a little bit of trap making here.
Gaining ground.
This is not going to be easy. All right, here's another little example of a narrative whatchamacallit. If I gain access to... All right, so I have a companion named Will, and Will is having under a warlock pact, and I need to... I would prefer him to not be subject to the whims of a specific, slave master, basically. And it's going to be easier to work with him if I can free him from his pact. As it happens, I have a agreement that I need to work with him. I have something, I need to do something for his patron, and if I manage to do that, then I'm going to get then I can maybe get him out of his pact. Right? That seems cool to me. That seems exciting. That's a reward for something that I'm going to do here, if I can do it for right. Oh boy. These guys have so many enemies. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Oh yeah, there's a Sith Lord. I use 6% chance to use that successfully. That's real. Oh man, that is a real problem.
What's this?
It's hard to describe just how cool this is going to be if I. Sweet, I can work with that. Right, there are 3 Illithids coming up. Oh, that's a problem. That's about to be an even bigger problem. They just took out Karlach. Tattoo injection. Oh man.
Another fight. Let's go.
Oh shit. It's that's... Let me start off with one. And then I am going to taste on myself. And I got. Alright, cool. I can work with that. Meantime, this guy needs to... something else. This is here. That intellect devour, that one. And then who goes up after them? It's those guys. Actually, no, quite like so. This we could work with. There's one less mind flight room that way, so... happens.
Enough! My mind is my own!
Alright, this does seem to be the way to go. That can be... They're little guys. As long as I protect the little guys, I think we will be okay.
A wise move.
I just almost killed that air elemental. That's a little unfortunate. Don't really want. But we'll leave. We'll be fine. Forget about your worries. Oh shit, I charmed him. I wasn't expecting that. That's unfortunate. What I can do here to increase my chances of survival? It doesn't. Air elemental. That doesn't do fun.
This is gonna feel good.
Alright. Time to see what happens here. I don't know how the Mind flayers are gonna do this. Oh, that's how they're gonna do this. Alright. Should have expected that. I will use an attack of opportunity, actually. Get fucked. Ooh, you missed, buddy. You missed, buddy. Oh, that's a problem.
Can't even catch my breath.
Is he stunned? That doesn't cure stunned. Alright. Oh shit, that doesn't help me at all. Okay. New player. Oh man, such a problem. That's crap. Nice. Nice. Okay. A little unfortunate? Yeah. A little unfortunate. Oh, just tad? Yeah, let's just go all in. Oh, I ran past that. Oh, that was a stupid decision I just made there. That's too embarrassing. Unfortunate. Might have to reload the save, actually. I'm supposed to rescue that guy. So level 3 slot left. Can I cast Revivify? Must be a playable character, so that's just I just can't do anything for that guy. Alright, that's I think I'm gonna figure out what it is I want to do next. But thanks for hanging out. That was a it's late for everyone at this point. I'm not in state for conversation right now. I don't think anyone else is. It was fun to go over some of the issues with last night's debate, and I thoroughly enjoyed mine. So I'm gonna see you guys later.